Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a reality that, well, literally all of us face every single day. Our world is in this constant, incredibly rapid, and let's be honest, sometimes overwhelming state of transformation. Across absolutely every sector you can think of, the environment, the economy, deeply held social values, the ground is shifting right beneath our feet. So my goal today is to help us really visualize these shifts. We're going to dive into the data, look at some defining historical moments, and try to make sense of how these massive transformations are reshaping our collective future, focusing especially on Dr. Susan Edwards' core essay on acknowledging change and Theme 6 on visions of justice. But first, let's set the stage a bit. I want you to wind the clock back to 1963 and consider the words of Poet Laureate Bob Dylan. He recorded this right around the time of the March on Washington, fully acknowledging that society was in the absolute thick of a massive upheaval. You know, Dylan's lyrics really remind us that transformation isn't just some modern phenomenon we invented. History, as Mark Twain famously said, often rhymes. By looking back at Dylan's realization that the old order was fading, we kind of arm ourselves with the perspective we need to assess the massive global transformations happening right now in our own time. Section 1. The times are a-changing. Acknowledging macro shifts. To really understand these shifts, we have to start with Dr. Susan Edwards' core essay on acknowledging macro-level transformations. And honestly, this number is just staggering, 7,000. That's exactly how many rare animals photographer Joel Sartor documented over a 12-year period. It brilliantly and kind of heartbreakingly illustrates the sheer scale of environmental transformation. Sartor had this haunting question: how can we get people to care that we could actually lose half of all species by the turn of the next century? He understood that by bringing us face to face with the sheer beauty and dignity of these animals, we might finally recognize that humans and animals are bound together in global networks of life. The environment is transforming at breakneck speed, and simply acknowledging that is the crucial first step. Okay, so it's not just the natural world transforming, right? It's our economic systems too. Think about the massive leap we've seen in traveler fees for basic things like luggage and legroom. Back in 2000, the US had 10 major airlines. Today, corporate consolidation means just 4 airlines control 83% of the entire market. And the result of that? Well, those consumer fees skyrocketed from $543 million in 2007 to a massive $4.2 billion by 2016. So the real takeaway here is that while we constantly hear that small businesses are the backbone of the economy, the undeniable reality of our modern economic transformation is massive corporate consolidation. And that's fundamentally changing costs for consumers all over the globe. Section 2. Global networks of transformation. Beyond physical stuff like airlines, the most volatile accelerant of global change actually exists in invisible networks. The digital revolution is forcing society to weigh incredible, life-altering convenience against some pretty extreme risks, and we are totally navigating uncharted territory here. Get this, a company in Wisconsin, 3 Square Market, is literally embedding microchips into their employees to create a completely cashless society. At the exact same time, cardiologists at Yale are pushing to share private medical data globally to speed up life-saving breakthroughs. But on the flip side, that exact same interconnectedness is what allowed international hackers to interfere in recent elections across the US, France, and Germany. Tech is transforming society way faster than we can work out the ethics of how to safeguard our own data. This intense digital interconnectedness brings us to a really profound collision between technology, media platforms, and human identity. Think back to former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick taking a knee to protest police brutality. Using his massive platform, his goal was to fight oppression. Conversely, his detractors felt the gesture was deeply disrespectful to the flag and to the nation's veterans. Now, we aren't here to take a side on this, but rather to look at the underlying dynamics. And that brings us to a vital question. In what ways is society transformed when we engage in respectful dialogues about our differences? I mean, how can we possibly achieve change if we completely fail to listen to divergent worldviews? Which funnels us perfectly into Section 3, shifting visions of justice. Taking off from that last question, we land squarely in the visions of justice theme from our source material. The technological and economic shifts we just covered are huge, for sure, but shifting definitions of fairness are the true volatile drivers reshaping our collective global reality today. Just consider the scale of these movements. This push for justice isn't isolated. It is a massive worldwide phenomenon. Over in India, a staggering 150 million workers went on strike demanding a higher minimum wage. In the UK, hundreds of thousands of people took to the streets in pro-immigrant protests following the Brexit vote, and the 2017 Women's March inspired millions globally to challenge male-dominated systems of government. Social movements just like these are entirely reshaping our collective understanding of fairness, forcing politics, economics, and the media to confront some very uncomfortable realities. Section 4. Clashes, resistance, and friction. Transformation is rarely a smooth ride. While these movements aim to highlight those uncomfortable realities we just talked about, they're consistently met with fierce resistance, and that brilliantly illustrates this social friction. There's often this profound underlying fear that moving too fast or changing too much will completely undermine our social cohesion. For example, let's look neutrally at the fierce debates surrounding the Black Lives Matter movement and mass incarceration in the United States. On one hand, representing a traditionalist pushback, you have former Mayor Rudy Giuliani, who attacked the movement as inherently racist, insisting instead on the phrase "all lives matter." On the other hand, author Ta-Nehisi Coates argues that if America truly wants to strive to be post-racist, we absolutely must directly confront the historical theft of slavery and the ongoing systemic impacts of segregationist policies. Again, the purpose of this explainer isn't to endorse a specific viewpoint, but to clearly assess just how differently these visions of justice are constructed and how deeply they clash. And if we zoom out a bit, we can see this friction is literally playing out on every single continent. These intense, raging disputes map out globally. In Venezuela, free speech advocates are clashing heavily with an anti-democratic regime. In Chechnya, the government has been torturing and imprisoning accused homosexuals, all while the president claims gay men don't even exist. Over in China, the tragic death of Nobel Prize winner Liu Xiaobo in state custody highlighted a very long history of repressing human rights. And in the United States, we've seen executive moves to purge transgender soldiers from the military despite growing equal rights movements. Really, everywhere you look, fundamental disputes about human rights and the very definition of justice are colliding head-on.
Section 5. Discord or revealing solutions.
Which brings us to the ultimate crossroads of this explainer. With all of this macro-level change, the crazy technological acceleration, and the intense social friction, we have to ask, are these movements undermining the fabric of society, or are they actually holding up a mirror in which we can view ourselves more accurately? This matters immensely. The stakes of these debates aren't just abstract academic philosophies to ponder in a classroom. As Dr. Edwards' source material explicitly reminds us, these debates dictate the actual physical treatment of real human beings across the globe. What you should really take away from this is that how we collectively answer this question will fundamentally shape the future of our civilization. So, I'm going to leave you with this final lingering thought. Given the incredible intensity of these global discussions we've covered today, is it even possible to disagree amicably anymore? Think about it. If the answer is yes, what does that actually practically look like in your own life? And if the answer is no, then what are our responsibilities as scholars, as servant leaders, and just as citizens of a rapidly transforming world? Understanding how to acknowledge and achieve change isn't just about reading the daily news, it's about figuring out how to ethically navigate these transformations right in our own communities. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this leaves you with plenty to think about.